Hello and welcome, family, to another episode of Wake Up Africa. My name is Dr. Mumbi Saraki. How you doing? How's everything going? I really do pray that you are well in all your ways and that you are living, not even moving into living. Now you should really be living in your own narrative, because family, the global narrative is so fluid right now. There's so many different influences and factors and all these things, and it's now blatantly not even about sharing news, but it's all about sharing agendas. But those are stories for other days. Special shout out to our Patreon family. Thank you so much for supporting us on that platform. It means so much to us. And thank you for enabling us to continue to make, sharing the Wake Up African news with the world our priority. And thanks to everyone that donates to the channel through PayPal as well. Definitely consider supporting the channel so we can continue to do this for as long as it's necessary for our people to shift to a certain part, because family, things are heating up, things are speeding up, things are changing. And what's very interesting is, okay, so one thing that I've started doing now is whenever I'm looking at like African publications, different publications that like here, the different local newspapers, etc., I always look to see what stories are our editors and our newspaper people picking up from Babylon. Because what usually happens is our people will have journalists maybe in that country. If it's a regional paper, maybe in the different countries of that region. And then it will go to places like Associated Press and Reuters to get stories of what's happening in the divided kingdom, in Europe, in the divided states, and it will kind of pick up the stories that it feels would be of interest to its people. No one knows, because there's so many stories that are coming out, daily. And this is what kind of makes it like one global narrative, although that is changing now because so many people are feeding this like global database where a lot of our local newspapers and stuff go for information. And one thing I noticed is that a lot of our local newspapers love those stories, or they love to pick those stories which show Africa winning, which kind of show the dynamics of the relationship between Africa and Babylon, and exposes Babylon. They love those stories, family, of what, and also just to expose China and all these things. And also to kind of expose themselves when, like when Zimbabwe got this parliament worth $100 million from the Chinese. It was a lot of African publications that ran that story. And it was almost like they were doing it like, have you ever heard of the term tongue in cheek? Like they're saying a lot without saying a lot. But so it was very interesting for me the other day when I came across this particular story in one of our East African publications, which talks about how a former U.S. National Security Advisor, John Bolton, actually admitted on television, I think last week, that he had helped to plan coups in other countries while arguing, and then they were talking about how he argued that what happened in Washington on January 6, 2021, when when the White House or whatever, or whatever building, the U.S. Capitol was stormed, was not planned. But I found it very interesting that this paper picked up this story and made it one of its centerpieces, and was talking about how, and even put the link and the actual quote. And so it talks about how Bolton was actually doing an interview with CNN, how ironic. And he said, as somebody who has planned coup d'etats, not here, but other places, it takes a lot of work. And, of course, they focus a bit on what happened with Capitol Hill, et cetera, et cetera. But I found this very, very interesting that an African paper would pick up this particular story from the divided states when there's so much going on. There's so much other stuff going on. And I think it's a way to confirm to our people, because our people have started to really put the pieces together of how we are continuously destabilized, of how engineered poverty is used against us. of how secret deals are signed behind our backs that harm us and benefit our politicians. We're starting to put the dots together. And also of how foreign armies are not here to fight any terrorist family, but they're more here to protect their interests and their assets. And the reason I share this is because there's been some very strange rumors and allegations, family, that some of the equipment that the US donated to Ukraine has been seen on the streets of, I don't know if it's Rwanda or where. There was also a lot of nervousness when I think thousands, I want to say 10,000 US troops landed recently in the divided Africa, no, in South Africa. From the divided states, landed in South Africa for a military drill, but it made the people extremely uneasy in the little town because they landed in some military base. And it made the people there extremely uneasy because it's like, yo, what's happening? And remember, I told you, please check out the show I did a while back on, how the divided states used Russia to literally move in troops into Africa and declare some kind of war. Perpetual war on Russia in Africa. It doesn't work like that. It's a cover. And another, interesting information, because basically what they do is, so once they, our local papers pay for those stories, then they kind of pick the paragraphs they want. And one of the things they do is they actually explained, an unabashed hawk. Bolton served in the U.S. Department of Justice and State during the 3 Republican administrations, starting with Ronald Reagan in the 80s. He was also the UN ambassador to the United Nations under George W. Bush for decades has been recognizable by his large white mustache. Okay, I mean, we're so funny. But he said, Bolton unrepentantly pushed for the U.S. invasion of Iraq and has voiced support for bombing Iran and North Korea, an interventionist approach to foreign policy that put him at odds with Trump, blah, 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 who actually fired him in 2019. But the whole thing, even, the title that they ran with was how this guy, Trump ex-official, but he's been in the business of politics, business of U.S. government for decades. How he actually said live, no shame, man, no shame to his game. Like, yeah, we plan coups in other countries. And so Africa is very much awake and aware of the games that have been played against us. What many Africans are waiting for now is a roadmap out of this mess. We are so entangled because of this political system and the matrix and all this debt. Like I was reading somewhere where it was talking about how Africa, almost 30% of our debt or something like that, could be as high as 40%, was owed to private creditors, like private banks, private peoples. How? 12% was owned to China. I guess who else is the rest? They didn't talk about that. So Africa is becoming increasingly aware of the games that have been played against us in plain sight, and it's being revealed to us. This information age is no joke. This Aquarian age is no joke, man. Information is there. People are exposing themselves. But we should know that soon and very soon, it won't be a cloak and dagger situation. Our enemies they're soon going to be forced to come out and say, yo, We're in your country because we need to protect our interests, because we need those diamonds, we need those rubies, we need that lithium. And so literally we're in a race between education and total domination. And we win. We've already won, family. But for me, when I saw that, I saw like there is also like a revolutionary streak in a lot of our local publications, even if they've sold out locally. When it comes to Africa versus the world, they love those conversations. They love those stories. They love those articles. And it's mostly African publications that will run the big stories, like the massacre that happened in Melita on the Moroccan border, and all the other injustices that our people go through. So the awakening is happening on that level right now, where people are grabbing a hold of just starting to comprehend how the odds have been stacked against us and how we've been played. But where's the roadmap, family? How do we get ourselves out of this crazy entanglement? Those are stories for other days. Tuko pamoja. Looking for a conscious community, or for people, who are on their awakening journey, on their transition to an off-grid living in your country, well, we have the solution, family. We're calling it Unity Communities. We get so many emails every week from people who ask if I know of people in their region, or people in their city, or people in their town who are on a similar kind of journey, who have broken away or are breaking away from the religious psychosis, and they're looking for just people who think the same way in their town, in their city. But more importantly, to give us a community where we feel understood, understood, overstood, where we can bond with people of like mind. And if you feel called to be part of this, definitely email me at drmumbi at drmumbishow.com. Please put your country in the subject line with Unity Communities. Get in touch with me, drmumbi at drmumbishow.com. Unity Communities.
Wake up, Africa!